The Guesthouse by Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house, empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
We're so pleased to have Leah here and blessed for many reasons, but one you might not have noticed is because she brings the work of contemporary composers to our worship. And she is also a contemporary composer. Now, this is particularly important to our UU faith because we believe that revelation is not sealed. In other words, new thoughts and ideas and channels of wisdom and understanding help keep us evolving spiritually. Leah bringing us new music is also important right now when our nation is so polarized between different value systems. Our denomination has called us to take a stand, and one of the ways we do this is by lifting up the work of BIPOC artists and musicians, as well as women and people with other traditionally marginalized identities. So I was curious about Mark A. Miller because I remembered his name as the composer of I Believe, the piece that our choir sang earlier this year and performed so beautifully that I was speechless here in the pulpit. So I wondered, just who is this composer? I learned that Mark A. Miller is a 64-year-old Ivy League educated Black man who teaches sacred music at Drew Theological School and at Yale. This partially explains why he was able to take the Tibetan Buddhist Metta Bhavana mantra and turn it into the touching choral piece that we heard today. The Metta Bhavana is a soothing and humble prayer that first asks for peace for oneself. There are many versions of the mantra, but it often goes, "May I be filled with loving kindness, may I be well, may I be whole." Then the next verse says, "May you be filled with loving kindness, may you be well, may you be whole." And finally, the last verse is, "May all be filled with loving kindness, may all be well, may all be whole." The prayer begins with the person reciting it and then radiates out into those around and finally holds the whole world in a vision and a plea for all people to be at peace. All beings, actually. The structure of the mantra is a lesson, a good practice for all that we do. If we are to heal the world and heal each other, we must start within. If we begin by healing and loving ourselves, that love will radiate out to the people around us, and from there we will heal the world. The Metta mantra is an ancient tool, and like most prayers and mantras and sacred music, it is a tool for helping us to ground ourselves in acceptance. We benefit from a practice of soothing ourselves by accepting the world as it is. From a place of acceptance, there is where we can imagine a better world. And this is a foundational practice even when things in our lives are going well or easy. Acceptance and imagination prepares us so that when things get rough, we have a foundation to help us stay grounded and get through the storms. In our reading today, we heard the 13th century Persian Sufi poet Rumi suggest, "This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness." Rumi emphasizes that we must be ready for all sorts of visitors. They might be feelings like shame or malice. They may be new awarenesses. They may be joy or celebration. And some of these expected guests might come through our guest house and trash the place. But Rumi says that we should open the door for them too. And then he really pushes it. He says we should open the door for them laughing. Well, why should we listen to Rumi? He's suggesting that we smile in the face of the unknown, even knowing that we may encounter sorrows and suffering each and every day. This is radical. This is the opposite of fear, the ultimate courage. He is suggesting we invite all guests in, and then he says, be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from the beyond. What does Rumi know anyway? There's no way to prove that the changes that come to us are guides from the beyond, that the universe is all wired up and connected, and there's some rhyme and reason and meaning to what happens in our lives. But the real question is, why are we attracted to this poem some 700 years after it was written? I like to think that it resonates with us on a non-cognitive level. We can't prove that the guests who show up at our metaphorical guest house door are really guides from the beyond. And yet, this poem lives on because something in it resonates with our cellular experience of how life works. Rumi is considered a mystic because his ideas are not always grounded in the empirical world, but instead in a spiritual apprehension of truths that are beyond our intellect. This particular version of the poem that Laura read us today was translated into English by Coleman Barks. But there's a catch here. Coleman Barks is a contemporary American poet and scholar who does not speak or read Persian. And yet, he's been cranking out translations of Rumi for nearly half a century. Barks is frequently criticized for taking too many liberties with his translations, and yet we love them. People have said that Coleman Barks has a profound spiritual eye. And some people even consider Barks's translations of Rumi to be more of a collaboration between himself and the poet. So we don't really know where Rumi ends and Coleman Barks begins in this translation, but we do know that the seed of this poem is a message that reminds us that changes will inevitably come and that our choice lies in how we receive them. Will we resist them or will we welcome them? And we may ask ourselves, why would we laugh and run to the door to welcome guests who may wreak havoc or cause suffering? Why greet the unknown with a light heart and humor when each of us here knows that sickness and loss and death and conflict and hurt are regular visitors to each of us? Why stay so buoyant and chipper? Because we have faith. Because faith is what keeps us charged up and strong and ready for those visitors that come in and knock the chairs over and scare the cat and sometimes threaten our very lives. We could cower in fear because answering the door is scary, or we can have faith in our ability to handle whatever comes. Cultivating this faith within ourselves is a source of joy. What a joy to remain curious about what guests will arrive at the door, knowing full well that we may be changed by them. There may be some meaning or outcome, or even some suffering that may lead to our growth, as the poem suggests, clearing you out for a new delight. Have you ever looked back on a difficult period in your life, on your own suffering, and realized that it changed you? Did letting go of something or someone clear you out for a new delight? We just don't know what comes our way that might serve as a guide. Change is rarely easy, and it never ceases. There are guests at our guest house door every single day, and we don't know why. There's a whole theological area of study called theodicy that asks, why suffering? In the Christian context, it asks, why would a benevolent creator allow suffering? I've seen some interesting guesses that theologians and philosophers and Wiccans have proposed, but let's face it, nobody knows for sure. So are we going to spend our precious lives kicking and screaming and raising our fists in defiance? Or will we choose instead to seek out and nurture that spark of joy that can be found within each of our hearts? The joy that's dancing in the air when we hear our choir sing a Mark A. Miller piece. The beauty of nature that takes our breath away when our children or grandchildren or even the kids and the cats on the internet make us laugh. That little buzz of joy is fed by beauty. Soon we will have the work of our first BIPOC artist on the walls of our sanctuary. It's such a win-win. We get to hold up the artist's work and help promote him, and we also get more color, more light, more life in our sanctuary. If you need to tap into that little spark and nurture your joy, go out front and visit our flower garden in front of the church, which is tended and nurtured with love and commitment by our garden team. Don't forget to notice how cute and funny our youngest member, Tommy, is. Or remember to admire Kieran's fantastic sparkly outfits. Don't forget how incredible it is that some of our members who struggle most with health and mobility are here among us in the sanctuary or online, showing up again and again. This is the well that we are free to drink from, the fuel that keeps us brave when it comes time to answer the door to the guest house every single morning. Open hearts are more sustainable and have better staying power than hearts and minds that are closed and fearful. I would rather drive a brave carriage horse through downtown than a scared carriage horse any day. My best Shire mare, Willow, carried me safely under the fireworks after the Rockies game, through crowds and parades and all sorts of madness because she's sassy. Because she trusted me, because Willow kicks the barn door every morning to say, let's get to work, come on, bring it on, let's go do this thing. She had faith in me and I had faith in her, and together we got through all sorts of unexpected and downright dangerous situations. And for us humans, the courage to embrace and accept life as it comes requires nurturing our spirits. Tony Uvry, a Buddhist meditation teacher, talks about the practice of walking the middle road between being too serious and heavy about things, but also not careless, not hedonistic. He suggests that the lightness of our hearts is what will get us through. Willingness, groundedness in ourselves and in our acceptance of constant change. So just like the metta mantra, we have tools to help us get to that lightheartedness in ourselves. These tools are here for everyone, all the time. They usually start with a mindful breath. Let us now take an absolutely free, no extra charge, mindful breath. Let's take a moment to come down out of our heads and look at each other and notice this sacred place. Notice the beauty in the room or the place that you are in. If you're here in the sanctuary, what do you see? And who do you see that grounds you in this moment in our guest house? If you're at home, look around and see what gives you life. Maybe it's your pet or a wall hanging or your soft jammies. Notice your body. Breathe and remember that you are in this world, but not of it. You are a spirit dwelling within a body. And as we look around and we breathe, we notice and we know change will come. These people, this beauty, this moment, our bodies will change. We will feel loss and we will meet challenges. We will face the unknown, but it's okay. This being human is a guest house. I'll leave you today with the time-honored words of the mystic Julian of Norwich. All will be well, and all will be well, and all manner of things will be well. Blessed be, and may it be so.